हाय दोस्तों, कैसे हैं आप लोग। आइए देखते हैं पीपीयू पॉलिटिकल साइंस ऑनर्स नोट्स बीए पार्ट 1। आज का हमारा इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, तो आइए देखते हैं टारगेट मिशन के साथ। ये क्वेश्चन पेपर 1 में 2020 में भी आया हुआ है, आप लोग देख रहे होंगे। क्वेश्चन नंबर 5। क्वेश्चन: critically describe the monastic theory or Austin monastic theory of sovereignty. Discuss monastic theory of sovereignty. Concept of sovereignty was first derived by John Austin, an English sociologist. Austin theory of sovereignty is also known as monastic theory of sovereignty. Sovereignty stands for super or supreme. Dictionary traces the meaning of the word sovereignty from the Latin word superinus, which means above and sovereign. Sovereignty bestow यानी प्रदान करता है upon the state supreme exclusive legal power of a control and voluntary obedience of all the person in that territory. It distinguishes state from all the other institutes existing other than the state. Sovereignty is a legal concept which simply legal supremacy of the state. This includes the supremacy of the state for the formation of the law. To enforce that law is also the part of the characteristic of sovereignty. Sovereignty एक legal concept है. Jane Borden, the supreme power of the state over citizens and subjects, unrestrained by law. ये जेन बॉर्डन का स्टेटमेंट है. ह्यूगो ग्रोटियस, the supreme political power vested in him whose acts are not subject to any other and whose will cannot be overridden. ये स्टेटमेंट ह्यूगो ग्रोटियस द्वारा कहा गया है. Sovereignty or supreme authority of the state have two basic dimensions: internal sovereignty and external sovereignty. Sovereignty के दो डायमेंशन होते हैं, एक इंटरनल और दूसरा एक्सटर्नल. Internal sovereignty. Internal sovereignty reflects legal supremacy over citizens and other association within the territory. External sovereignty. External sovereignty is reflected in the form of sovereign equality of states and the right of a state to exist independently in international arena. Characteristics of sovereignty. First, absoluteness. It refers to power which is not restricted or limited to any consideration or authority, both internally or externally. Sovereign cannot be limited or restricted by any law or moral or social consideration, customs and historical traditions, law of nature, etc. Borden. He defines sovereign as absolute power over the citizens. It flows from the legal superiority. There is only one sovereign and one superpower in the state. Second, indivisibility. Logically emerges from the characteristic of absoluteness. If sovereignty is absolute, then it must have a character by unity. Without it becomes inconsistent. If law is the command of the sovereign, the command must emanate from a unified body or it might lead to a conflicting and ambiguous commands to divide. Sovereignty is to create two sovereign. While sovereignty is associated with state, power is associated with government, and government is expression and the body through which sovereignty is being exercised. Third, inalienability. It means state cannot code away any form of its essential elements without self-destruction. If sovereignty is transferred, then the very existence of the state will get questioned. Fourth, permanence. If sovereignty is inalienable, it is permanent in nature. Sovereignty is a permanent characteristic of the state. Example: change in government does not change the sovereignty. Sovereignty is the permanent character of the state. Fifth, universality. Sovereignty is characterized by the universality. Irrespective of their shape, size, economic power, every sovereign state have same and equal importance in the international arena. They are independent of taking their own decisions. Theory of sovereignty. Austin's theory of sovereignty. Monastic theory. John Austin, 1790 to 1859. He was an eminent English jurist. He is regarded as the greatest exponent of the theory of legal sovereignty. He explained this theory in his famous book Lectures on Jurisprudence, published in 1832. Explained monastic theory of sovereignty. His theory is also referred to as the monastic theory of sovereignty because he regarded the state as the only supreme authority. जॉन ऑस्टिन ने मोनेस्टिक थ्योरी ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी अपने पुस्तक लेक्चर्स ऑफ ज्यूरिस्प्रूडेंस में एक्सप्लेन की है जो 1832 में पब्लिश हुई है. कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स ऑफ ऑस्टिन थ्योरी ऑफ सॉवरेनिटी. Sovereignty is an essential element of the state. Sovereignty in the state must be determinate, receives habitual obedience from the bulk of society. Sovereignty is unlimited power. Sovereign is the only source of law. Sovereign is indivisible. Importance of Austin's theory of sovereignty. State as only source of law. Laws are enforced only by the state. Associations are not equal to the state. ये कुछ पॉइंट्स हैं ऑस्टिन थ्योरी ऑफ सोवरेनिटी के इम्पोर्टेंस के. क्रिटिसिज्म ऑफ ऑस्टिन थ्योरी. Sovereignty is not always determined. Sovereignty is divisible. Power of the sovereign are not unlimited. Laws are not always the command of the sovereign. Laws are obeyed because of their utility. Austin ignores political sovereignty. Criticism of this theory by pluralists. ये सब ऑस्टिन थ्योरी के क्रिटिसिज्म हैं. What is monism? Monism basically is the earliest form of the sovereignty. The command of the sovereign is law. He established the state as the single source of law. It basically signifies that sovereign basically flows from one single source and not from multiple sources. The monastic theory confers on the state. It was basically introduced by Thomas Hobbes and Bentham. It was fully explained by the English jurist John Austin. He explained the concept of legal sovereignty completely. According to grammar, Austin's formulation of state was based upon his theory of law, which he defined as command given by an superior to an inferior. According to Austin, sovereign is the single source of law. ये दो लोगों का विचारधारा है ग्रामर और ऑस्टिन का सोवरेनिटी के प्रति. ही एक्सप्लेन हिज व्यू. यहाँ पे ऑस्टिन की बात कही गई है. ही एक्सप्लेन हिज व्यू एलोबरेटली इन हिज बुक लेक्चर्स ऑफ ज्यूरिस्प्रूडेंस. ऑस्टिन्स ऑब्जर्वेशन. अब हम देखेंगे ऑस्टिन्स का ऑब्जर्वेशन. If a determinate human superior receives habitual obedience from the bulk of given society, that determinate superior is sovereign in the society, and that society is political and independent. Law is the aggregate of rule set by man as politically superior or sovereign to man as political subject. What led to monism? Previously, man used to live in an uncivilized society. The males who were stronger used to dominate the society. जो इंसान ज़्यादा ताकतवर रहता था वो एक कमज़ोर इंसान को डोमिनेट करता था सोसाइटी में. Hence a large portion of the society who were not able enough was left out. So for the betterment of all, the men decided to give away their natural rights and to establish a sovereign to govern them. Conclusion. So that a sovereign was created which would be placed above all. The sovereign must exercise its power for welfare and betterment of the society, so that in the process of development no one is left out. तो इन कारणों की वजह से सॉवरेन क्रिएट हुआ था. तो आप लोग का ये इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक ऑस्टिन मोनेस्टिक थ्योरी ऑफ सोवरेनिटी यहीं कंप्लीट होता है. आप लोग कई जगह पे देख रहे होंगे कि रेड पेन का यूज किया गया है, पर आप लोगों को एग्ज़ाम पेपर पे रेड पेन का यूज़ नहीं करना है, केवल ब्लू पेन का ही यूज़ करना है. थैंक यू वेरी मच. अगर आप लोगों को किसी और टॉपिक, सिलेबस या क्वेश्चन बैंक रिलेटेड वीडियो चाहिए तो कमेंट सेक्शन में ज़रूर बताएं. वंस अगेन थैंक यू. Target mission is always with you all.